At PeopleCert, we believe in the extraordinary potential that resides within each and every one of us. Empowering people and organizations to achieve what they are truly capable of is not just a statement. It's the reflection of our mission to develop global best practice frameworks, as well as professional and language certifications that improve organizational efficiency and enhance the academic journeys, careers, and lives of people. Because we know that behind every certification, every method or practice, lies an ambition to make an impact with the successful completion of a project, to improve an IT service, to break down communication barriers, to optimize results. Because we believe in the power of learning and dreams.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, wherever you are in the world. My name is Rosario Aguirre Herrera, and today we are going to have a good meeting about how ITIL supports business as usual, innovation, and sustainable growth. With our experts, we will see in our next slides who they are. Some housekeeping. You can enable translated captions. You just have to go to your toolbar where it says CC and click on Show Captions. And there, when you click, you will get the option to click on Translation. And there you can choose your caption language, okay? So, para los hablantes en español, pueden poner la traducción automática, las leyendas automáticas, yendo al control de CC en la barra de herramientas y ahí habilitan el lenguaje en que quieren leer las leyendas. No es perfecto, algunos acrónimos no salen del todo bien, pero es bastante bueno. Okay, and then we will record the session and share the recording later. You will be able to access the research study that through a link directing you to our PeopleCert platform after the event. We will raffle a few ITIL e-learning vouchers among attendees at the end of the webinar, and you can ask questions through the Q&A. The chat is not active, so please use the Q&A. So going to next slides. Well, I'm Rosario, as I mentioned. Then we have Ashley Bassett, who is our Senior Product Manager, and David Cannon, who is our Director for the Americas. Next, I will speak briefly about PeopleCert. We are a European company. We have presence in more than 200 countries. And our mission is to develop global best practice frameworks and certifications that improve organizational efficiency and enhance the lives and careers of people. So going to the next, this is our presence, our global presence. And in the next one, you're going to see our comprehensive product portfolio. As you know, we are owners of the IP of ITIL and Prince2 for a project, portfolio, and program management. We also acquired DevOps Institute, and we also have language certs, which are language cert certifications. Some of them are approved by the UK government as a proof of language proficiency for work or study in the UK. And finally, we work in a global ecosystem of leading partners, and our clients include 50,000 leading companies and 82% of Fortune 500 companies, 800 government departments in 45 countries, and our products and services are delivered by 2,500 leading training organizations and recognized by 2,500 academic institutions. So now I leave you with our experts. I hope you enjoy this meeting. Thank you very much.
Good morning and good afternoon. At PeopleCert, we're continuing to work on a shift from being the sole examination institute for ITIL to balancing our focus to include adoption activities by enterprises. This requires a significant amount of change across our business, and while we continue to invest heavily in our certification products, we're also developing and evolving other schemes to support and grow the adoption of ITIL and our other products by enterprises. One aspect of balancing this focus is our partner ecosystem. Our training and certification products remain the largest channel, and we have significant programs to enhance our product families for our customers. In the last 12 months alone, we've completed a series of 15 new ITIL practitioner certifications with the corresponding official training material and e-learning courses. We've also launched the new edition of Prince2 7th edition for foundation and practitioners. We've completed the acquisition and integration of the DevOps Institute into our products and enhances our service management proposition. And we've also developed and launched new learning and delivery platforms to improve our customers' experience. Last year, we launched the new accredited tool vendor program. To date, we have already assessed and onboarded more than 60% of the high-profile service management vendors, those vendors that are tracked and feature in both Gartner and Forrester research. The ATV program offers our enterprise customers an easier route to selecting potential technology vendors that are aligned to ITIL best practices. And for these new partners, a formal accreditation that their tools are fit for purpose to meet the significant investments made by our customers. Later this year, we'll be significantly revamping the ACP program, incorporating more content and tools for these partners and enabling them to be more effective when offering their consultancy services to our enterprise customers. For us, the new ACP scheme is the tip of the spear in our shift to enterprise adoption, bringing industry expertise and thought leadership to our customers, supporting the development of their business and technology strategies, helping designing and implementing best practices to execute and achieve these strategies. Today, we're going to focus on how ITIL brings value to supporting the business. It has traditionally been viewed as an operational model for internal services, keeping the wheels turning, and through continual improvement, ensuring these services and operations run efficiently and effectively. However, ITIL does more than this and is being leveraged to support business strategy and business growth. To start with, I'm going to share some findings of two pieces of analysis that shows organizations are using ITIL to meet both business as usual and more strategic value. And then my colleague David is going to share some guidance and practical approaches on how to leverage ITIL and get the most impact for your business. We recently analysed the data submitted in our ITIL maturity model. For those of you who aren't aware, PeopleCert's ITIL maturity and capability model is an assessment tool that measures the maturity of an organization's service value system and the capability of practices that underpin these services. There's a link in the appendix of this deck should you want to explore the maturity model further. By reviewing this data from the assessments performed over the last couple of years, we've identified the following conclusions. Many enterprises continue to assess the core practices that underpin operational and support services, such as incident, problem, request, and change management. And these practices score the highest. This shows that these practices continue to be a high priority to enterprises, and the continued investment in ITIL adoption has resulted in a higher level of maturity across many enterprises. While much fewer, we are seeing assessments including more strategic and general business management practices like workforce and talent management, organizational change management, and business analysis management. These practices were introduced in ITIL 4, so it's great to see enterprises assessing these practices as part of their transition from version 3 to 4. We're also seeing some long-standing practices such as capacity, release, IT asset management, and service level management also featuring in assessments. These practices are still scoring low, and this may be due to the involvement of numerous inputs into the practices, such as technology, internal cross-functional engagement, and/or external parties that make these practices more difficult to articulate and execute. The positive news here is that organizations continue to broaden their application of the ITIL framework across business functions and across their partners. A recent independent survey also shows the continued importance of ITIL being adopted and leveraged by enterprises globally. This slide shows the demographics of the research, of which we surveyed 1,500 IT managers with budget responsibility. And you can see it was a truly global survey across many different types of industries and sizes of companies. And we also included many types of roles, again, all with budget responsibility. We focused the survey on business value statements, trying to raise the perceived value of ITIL from being an internal operational perspective to focus on more strategic benefits for the business. Interestingly, from those surveyed, we see organizations truly understanding the wider business value of adopting the core principles of ITIL. If you can switch to the, thank you. The first two data points establishes the typical benefits we'll see. These are identified normally when we're talking to enterprises about ITIL, particularly at the outset of their improvement initiatives. These tend to be more focused on operations and traditional internal service provision. However, we started seeing organizations realizing the importance of ITIL driving more strategic value. These two metrics on the right relevant to our topic today, and we saw positive impacts to innovation and security and business continuity. The high-level conclusion to this research is that ITIL is still core to an enterprise's operational needs, but is also becoming more integral to supporting business strategy, raising its profile from IT management to business stakeholders. Let's dig into a little bit more detail into these 4 data points. The survey asked if ITIL helped improve service quality and customer experience from the services they provide, of which 73% of the respondents indicated they achieved significant or dramatic improvements to service quality and customer experience. ITIL brings together the focus of practices, processes, and policies that underpin the services and their alignment to the 4 dimensions of service management, and also the service value system, which includes the guiding principles, governance activities, and service value streams. Essentially, the design and maintenance and effectiveness of these services are aligned and focused on delivering value to the business by providing high quality services and a high level of experience to your customers. The survey asked also if ITIL provided significant savings in operational costs and enabled more focus towards development and growth activities, of which 70% of the respondents said they realised more than 10% of savings. The second part of this question in the survey is the most important bit, enabling more focus towards development and growth activities. Identified savings is a great metric, but what does this actually mean? Particularly when we're referencing operational expenditure, this saving provides new advantages. The savings could be assigned to activities that can provide the business additional value. And these values might be financial value, increasing revenue or profitability. It could be the development of new products and services to enter new markets or acquiring new customers, or improving operational productivity, or indeed investing in your resources, such as upskilling and training. The third metric was through asking if ITIL helps adopt innovation and business activities and market growth. 75% of the respondents said that it did. I've spent many years talking about the benefits of ITIL to enterprises, and this is a really exciting finding from the research on how ITIL drives business activities, both internally and externally, particularly in a digital world. And we interpreted this to mean that 75% of organizations are future-proofing their businesses, predominantly in two ways. Firstly, by leveraging ITIL to improve its ability to adopt innovative and new technologies into their business. And secondly, leveraging ITIL to improve agility, that responsiveness in adapting to changes in market forces to maintain or improve market positioning. Think about this for a moment. If you reflect back on your last major project, how challenging has adopting a new system to your business been? From the research to procurement, configuration, implementation and integration, through to training and adoption by your users, and your users who are resistant to change. Now imagine if your business, your management teams, your business functions and staff all understood how and why your organization is going through this change. And not only understanding this, but they're also involved early in the process, following the key principles of ITIL, supporting the changes in those digital products and services. How quickly do you think your business can adopt new technologies and adapt to necessary change? I bet pretty quickly, and most importantly, quicker, or at least as quickly than many of your competitors. The fourth metric I'll look at is the survey asked if the implementation of ITIL improved data resilience and cultural behavior to the protection of your company's intellectual property, of which 81% of respondents said that it did. ITIL provides a broad set of practices that support and guide and the responses to and the mitigation of risks in your business. By having established and transparent practices, processes and policies beyond just the IT operational teams, the process owners and the resources executing your security and risk management practices, would mean that your wider business would become significantly more resilient. David, over to you.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Rosario. My job on this webinar is to expand on what Ashley has shown you and show how these results could be achieved in real life, and to share with you just a couple of stories about how organizations have achieved these kind of benefits. Now, I do see that there are some questions in the chat. We will get to them at the end of this presentation. So let me take a look, first of all, at something that that Ashley has mentioned. I just want to summarize what we already know from the research. And the first thing is that these benefits are achieved with long-term application. They don't just happen because you introduce a single ITIL practice within the first 6 months. They happen because we implement practices, we improve them, and we apply them in our organization. The second thing that Ashley mentioned that we learned from this research is that there is usually more than one practice involved when we achieve these results. So I want to explore potentially what combination of practices could give these kind of results. The other thing that we know is that there is a certain set of benefits that we get when we implement the standard set that most organizations think of when they think of service management, which is event management, incident, problem, change enablement, and request management. What we find is that a lot of these benefits that Ashley has talked about are achieved when we move beyond the basic 5 or 6 practices that are most commonly used. And Ashley showed a little bit earlier on that it is the more strategic, the broader practices that really help to achieve even more of the benefits. So I'm going to explore how that works in this presentation. The other thing we know from the research that was conducted through the Axelos survey is that the success of an ITSM program depends on things like executive buy-in. In fact, that was the #1 obstacle to achieving the benefits of service management, is when we did not have the support of the executives within our organization. Another thing which is really important is the attitude to digital transformation. If your organization is just looking to save money by modernizing a particular system or a particular architecture, that will give some benefit. But the greater benefits are achieved when the organization has a more positive attitude to changing the culture of the organization, to changing the way in which the operations of that organization work, to changing the business model of that organization. So the greater the appetite for transformation is, the more you'll see these benefits happening. Culture of the organization is exceptionally important. And culture refers to the way that people do things within the organization, how they make decisions, how they interact with each other, what kind of objectives are rewarded and behavior is rewarded in the organization. We've seen a number of service management projects fail because the culture was just not ready for them. On the other hand, we've seen projects go beyond what was anticipated because people embraced them and were willing to change the culture and willing to adopt new behaviors. So culture plays a very important role. The other thing that we know is that the role of IT in the business is very important. When we're talking about achieving benefits of service management, it's really important that the IT department or departments within the organization are closely related to the business units that use that technology. I'm going to give you an example of this in a couple of moments. But what I need to do is focus on something that Ashley referenced during his presentation, which is these ITIL practices don't just consist of a process or a tool. They consist of a combination of a number of different areas. So every practice, whether it's incident management or problem management or strategy management, all of them consist of a combination of different aspects or different dimensions. These are the 4 dimensions of service management. So at the center, you have products and services which deliver value. And around those are the 4 dimensions. So we need to make sure that the organizations and people are aligned to the practices so that we can achieve the kind of benefits we're anticipating. Culture, for example, executive buy-in, very important. Information and technology relates to the tools and the data and information that we need to make those practices work effectively. Value streams and processes have to do with the way in which we work, how we support the overall business model and operating model of the organization. Partners and suppliers refers to how we engage with other external parties who are helping us to meet these objectives. The more we can use all 4 of these dimensions together, the better we will be able to achieve the objectives that we're setting out to. So what we found in research is that organizations who only focused on adopting a new tool were able to achieve a certain level of benefit. Organizations who combined the adopting of a tool with the introduction of new processes or the improvement of existing processes, we're looking at the way the organization was structured, the way in which behaviors were rewarded, and who changed the way they were working with their external suppliers, achieved far more benefits than those who focused on just one dimension. But there's something else I'd like to point out when it comes to the 4 dimensions. Around the edge of that, if you look at any ITIL guide, you will see that they talk about the factors of the environment or the components of the environment that will impact how these 4 dimensions work. In ITIL, we use PESTEL. That's what you have here: political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. You can use any combination that is familiar to you or your organization. The important thing, though, is that there are factors that influence how these 4 dimensions work and whether you're going to achieve the benefits that you need to achieve. And I'd like to point out something very interesting. When we talk about PESTEL, in this case, the factors around the 4 dimensions, more often than not, organizations and people, managers, tend to only think about those as external factors. So if you're in the US, as I am right now, we have an election coming up, and you will know that the political factor is a strong influencer of what is going on in the world around us. We're not going to get into politics on this call, don't worry. Let me just say that we all understand this is a contentious election coming up, and it's influencing a lot of things. But what does that have to do with what's happening in my organization? Probably not a whole lot. May influence it indirectly, may influence the behavior of some of your consumers, but how does that impact your ITSM program? Probably not a whole lot. However, what we need to remember is that these factors, like politics, are not only active in the external environment, they're also active internally. So when we talk about politics is one of the things that can derail a project more than any other. If you don't have the right stakeholders involved, if you don't understand what the stakeholders' objectives are, if you don't know how to link your project's achievement or your practice's achievement to the individual business unit leads and their objectives and their strategies, it's going to be very difficult to achieve these benefits. So the point I'm making here is, please, as you're implementing, as you're thinking about the benefits you can achieve by using ITIL practices, always bear in mind that there are many environmental factors, both inside your organization and outside your organization, that you need to take into account before you will actually achieve these kind of benefits. Now that we understand that, I wanted to tell you how it worked, because that's what everybody's asking, right? How did that actually work? And I'm going to tell you 2 stories. The first story is the story or the case of the unhappy factory manager. It's a simple story. This actually happened. I've been involved in both the stories I'm going to tell you. So I can tell you firsthand exactly what happened and how it worked. So this was a factory. It happened to be based in the US, but it actually was a global company. So it was not just the US. It affected many different countries around the world, and especially for those on the call, there were at least 3 of the factories in Latin America that were involved in this, and 1 in Canada, as well as a handful in the USA. So global company, we found that there was a problem. The problem was that the IT group managed an ERP system. They had a bunch of developers, they had a bunch of networking engineers, they had a bunch of infrastructure engineers, all working together to provide the series of services based on the ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System. In their minds, it belonged to IT. Now, on the other side were a bunch of factories. And this one particular factory, the engineers in the factory, the manufacturing engineers, had gone out and bought a manufacturing control system that was very specific to the kind of work that they did in that factory. And as far as the factory engineers were concerned, that manufacturing control system belonged to them. Now, this is why the factory manager was unhappy. Was because manufacturing depended on getting data out of the ERP system and loading it into the manufacturing control system. The problem was that the factory engineers had purchased the manufacturing control system without involving the IT group. So you can imagine, whenever there was an outage, the factory engineers blamed IT. The IT department says, well, you bought it, it's your problem. And it got stuck. Every time that happened, the factory manager lost $250,000. How often did this happen? At least once a month. $250,000 times 12 is what it cost them, just because the IT department and the factory engineers could not agree on how to get data from the ERP system into the manufacturing control system. And neither group was willing to actually solve the problem. So what do we do? How could ITIL help? Well, the first thing that we did was we went and sat down with the factory manager and the engineers, and we had some of the key parties, key stakeholders who managed and developed the ERP services. We defined what the actual service was. Because when you asked the IT group what the service was, they had a 10-page essay describing how we would store data, how we would report data, how we would move data from one system to another. It was hugely complex, and it involved all kinds of data scientific terminology that nobody but them could understand. When we sat down together with the factory managers, it boiled down to one thing. Before we manufacture a product, we need to import data about the raw materials, the manufacturing process, and we need to import it into the manufacturing control system. That's it. That's the service. You want to create a 10-page essay about it, you do that behind the scenes, but that's all we're worried about. And you get us the data we need before the manufacturing run starts. That was it. Well, before the manufacturing run starts, which data do you need? Those questions we had to ask. And we asked that using the practice service level management. Now, it's important to note here, we did not go back and spend 18 months implementing a full-scale service level management solution. No, what we did is we took the practice and we said, this is the kind of problem we're trying to solve. How can service level management help us? And we applied just enough of the service level management practice to help us solve this problem. What we applied was we created a working group. We sat down and we asked questions. Who uses the service? When do they use it? Why do they use it? How do they use it? When we had the answers to those questions, we defined everything that the factory engineers had to do to consume the service, and we defined everything that the IT group had to do to deliver the service. Then we set an expectation. We said, factory engineers, if you need that data before your manufacturing run, we need 2 days notice. If we don't get 2 days notice, we can't give the data because that's how long it takes. So we set that level of expectation and we created responsibilities on both sides. We used the service level management practice to help us do that. But that wasn't all we did. We had a whole list of things that the IT department had to do to deliver the service. And one of the key things we needed to know is which service components were being used, who managed them, and what kind of activities needed to be managed on those components. For example, what level of performance was required on those components in order to meet the expectations. To do that, we went into configuration management. Now, this particular organization already had a configuration management database. They had done some auto discovery and they had information about every single component that was out there. What we learned, though, through doing this exercise is that to manage this particular service, we only needed to know about 12 key infrastructure and software or application components. That's all we needed. We needed to know about 12 things in order to be able to deliver this service. So we set about going into the CMDB and architecting how those 12 things would be recorded and reported so that we could deliver this service. Now, of course, this was just the first one. Over time, we would have to go through and re-engineer and rework the way the whole CMDB was defined. But we started with just that one service. Now, before we did that, the thought was that there were at least 200 components that needed to be managed. What we learned was that we really only needed to manage 12. If we managed those 12, the others, actually, we didn't need to worry about them because everything that we needed to manage was in those 12. So we actually reduced the amount of work and overhead on the CMDB significantly. In fact, over the next 18 months, the CMDB work was decreased by at least 30%. The amount of data that was being recorded was reduced by over 75%. We also needed to do problem management because they had complaints. They said that whenever there was a manufacturing run, at least once a month, there were problems. Well, why didn't we know about it? Well, we didn't know about it because the service desk kept saying, you bought the system, you fix it. And we didn't record them. So we had to go in and do some analysis. We had to do some problem management. And we had to figure out why those incidents had occurred and how to solve them. What we realized, what we learned from that was it was not, in fact, the manufacturing control system. It was, in fact, a networking issue on the IT department side. So we were blaming them, they were blaming us, and all along, it was our fault. When we could take ownership of that and solve that and show how we'd done it, then we were able to start having more meaningful discussions about what kind of services we could deliver in the future. We also needed financial management. Why financial management? Well, the thing was that the factory manager was most upset about the $250,000 that he was losing every time we had an outage. As it turns out, to fix that outage, we needed to spend some money. How do we get the factory manager, who's really unhappy with IT, to recognize that he needs to open his checkbook and sign a check for some money? For how much did we need? Was it going to be enough? Well, we had to get some financial information to make the business case. As it turns out, to solve the problem of $250,000 a month in outages, all it would take was a $300,000 investment. Before this, factory manager was not interested in paying a single cent to solve the problem. Now that we understood where the problem was and the fact that we took ownership of it, they were prepared to sign that check. Without financial management, we would not have been able to do it. Also, continual improvement. As I mentioned, we did this for just one service in one factory. Over the following 6 months, we replicated this exercise across all 40 factories around the world, and we expanded over the next 18 months to every single ERP service and product that was being delivered. That required an iterative approach with continual improvement. If we didn't have a continual improvement practice in place, we would not have been able to achieve that. So, what were the benefits that were achieved? By using that particular combination of practices over time, we were able to make the factory manager happy. And we did this because of the benefits that Ashley spoke about earlier. Continuity of business operations. There were no longer any of those outages. Improvement in service quality and experience. Because for the first time, everybody was on the same page about what service was being delivered, when it was needed, what they were going to do with it, etc. The investment strategy was optimized. So we were saving money on one hand by reducing outages, but on the other hand, we were getting the right level of investment to deliver the quality of service we needed. We were also able to improve the outcomes that the factory manager thought were valuable. And we were able to, I've already mentioned this, improve business continuity. In other words, we knew what the priorities were, and we could plan to prevent outages in the future. Okay, that's one case. Here's case number 2. We're going to defragment a business operation. Nothing to do with IT. This is on the business. Here's the scenario. Construction company wanted to use digital technology so that they could do business faster and they could use innovative new building methods. Fantastic. It was really exciting. The vision was really good, but IT was perceived as being too slow, could not support the business. Solution that they chose was to reduce the role of IT to simply doing break fix of laptops and desktops and network support. The other thing they did is said, everything's in the cloud. Let's take the business units to source their own solutions from the cloud. So they did. They moved IT to become part of corporate services, a very small part of corporate services, and they let the business units, there were 3 major business units, make a decision about which cloud solutions they would choose. And surprise, surprise, each one chose a separate cloud solution. Now, interestingly, every one of those cloud solutions was a different type of CRM, customer relationship management system. So we have 3 different solutions doing about 80% of the same thing. Problems. Well, there was a disconnect between IT and the business units because IT was no longer involved in the business. And it meant that whenever there was a high priority thing, IT was slow to respond because they didn't understand what was high priority and low priority. The business processes themselves got fragmented because the business units were using different tools in silos and they weren't connecting. In fact, the problem there was that data in the cloud is not portable. They couldn't move data from one of the cloud solutions to any of the others, which meant that they then tried to create this really expensive data warehousing solution to try and get data from all 3 sources and be able to report on it. It was hugely inefficient. Not only that, but they were now at exposure to risk because they were exploring and going off in different directions without any governance. So that meant they were open to cybersecurity threats that they were not even aware of. It meant that the business was at risk because they were trying new things in an experimental way without any kind of governance or continual improvement in place. How did ITIL help? Well, the first thing that we had to do was create a consistent governance. Get all of the business leaders together to recognize their role in acquiring and using and managing digital technology. It was simple. We just created a steering committee where they sat and talked about the things every second week. They sat down and talked about the things that they were doing in IT. They very quickly realized that there was a lot of duplication of effort. And in fact, they were exposing the company to risk. We then put in place strategy management, not the whole strategy management, but the part of strategy management which said, hey, each of you 3 business units and the corporate services, what is your strategy? What are you trying to achieve? Where are you trying to go? What is the business model that you're trying to achieve? And what are the value streams that you're using? Now, the value stream discussion became hugely important. I'll show you in a moment. We then talked about portfolio management. Now, again, we didn't create a whole portfolio that took 18 months. All we did is sit down and define which products and services were critical for you to be able to do your job. And how do those services contribute to achieving the value stream? We also identified duplication. Risk management became really important as we started to identify which activities and which services and which products were exposing the organization to risk. Capacity and availability management became really important because we needed to understand if we were going to use all of these different technologies, how big did they need to be? How did they need to perform? How were they going to be managed? We, of course, realized that we had to reduce the number of cloud solutions from 3 down to 1 that was used across the whole organization. Well, how were we going to do that? We also needed to identify the services and products that IT was going to be responsible for. As it turns out, it was a bad decision to move IT out of the business. We needed to reincorporate them and make them part of business decision-making again. To do that, IT needed, and the business units needed a very clear understanding of which products IT was going to be responsible for and which were going to be managed by business unit leads. At the same time, in parallel to all the strategic stuff, we needed to solve the IT operational areas. Remember, they didn't know what the priorities were. They were just doing work as it came in. And invariably, they were falling short on expectations from the business. So we had to put in place some clear operations management and practical operational practices to make sure that IT was performing consistently, understanding what the business needed from them and when, and the ability to meet those needs. To make sure that everybody was aligned, one cloud solution, which enabled the entire organization to support a single value stream. Instead of 3 different departments that were working separately, let's take a look at a single value stream and focus on how those different business units supported the value stream. Again, we see the benefits that Ashley spoke about being very clearly achieved within this case. And again, it's a combination of ITIL practices. Very importantly, this didn't happen in 6 months. We started in 6 months, but the real benefits were achieved and started to be achieved after 18 months. And after 18 months, we continued to improve and iteratively build on the solution that had been created. So even more benefits are being received and achieved every year. Now, I'm going to stop storytelling now. We're 10 minutes before the end of the webinar, and I know Rosario has some very important information that she would like to share.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we can go with the questions first, and then yeah. Yeah, let's go with this one. Sorry. Let's go with this one, just to share the next slide.
Okay. There we are.
Yeah. No, here before the questions and the raffle, just a reminder that we have People Search platform which is a collaborative community, a very vibrant community of professionals with a lot of resources. And it is a freemium platform, which so you can be there at the essential plan that is for free and get resources, and also have a subscription for PeopleSource Plus, where you can renew your certifications, you can gain access to studies, case studies, then you can gain free take tools, sample papers, digital badges, a wealth of resources. Here you can scan the code to get access to it. Then regarding the ITIL maturity and capability model, this assesses your current ITIL practices. You can do it on your own, or you can have them professionally assessed by an accredited consulting partner. And also, we are going to issue an ITIL implementation guide by early 2025, a practical guidance on how to use ITIL to meet your specific objectives. So now let's keep on to the Q&A, and finally we go to the raffle. Okay.
Okay. So there are a few questions I can answer pretty quickly. Interesting one from Jay. How we got 3 business units to choose one of the cloud solutions, and you're right, it was one of the 3 that was already in use. The key to this is that IT did not make that decision. What happened is the business unit leads were all in the same meeting, the IT steering committee meeting, and the problem was put to them. This is how much it's going to cost you to get the data from the 3 cloud services into a single place so you can report on it. Alternatively, you're using 80% of the same functionality. Is that 20% difference worth having separate solutions? So it became a cost issue, number one. Are you prepared to pay for the pain of having 3? 2, you have been complaining about, as business leads, about how difficult it is to get work from one business unit to the next business unit in the value stream. The reason it's difficult is because there is no integration between these 3 platforms. So if you want us to solve that problem, then we have to solve the problem of 3 platforms. You tell us. And they argued amongst themselves. It wasn't an argument with IT, it was an argument between business units. The key differentiator, remember I said politics was a very important factor? The key differentiator is the driver of this project was not the CIO, it was the Chief Operating Officer. The Chief Operating Officer is the one who said to all of the business units, we cannot have a consistent business operation if you 3 cannot get together onto the same page. And that is what made the difference. Right, a couple of, how do we deal with resistance to change? Sorry, I'm not looking down in order, but how do we deal with resistance to change? You know, the most important thing is to get people into the same room and talking. When, you know, it's an old saying, it's easy to hate somebody you don't know, but when you get to know them, you can't hate them so much. And I think that was the situation here. When we got them into the same room and they start talking about the common problems that they were facing and how they were trying to solve them, when one group recognized the pain they were causing the other group and vice versa, that's when the change started happening. It was at an interpersonal level. It had nothing to do with the solution we were trying to introduce. It had to do with people getting to know each other, people getting to understand how they were contributing to one another's success or the lack of their success. I think that was key in case number 1. Right, let me go further to the top. Research was not conducted in any LATAM country. I have to say that is being corrected. All of the research that we're doing right now is definitely focusing on LATAM countries, including the Axelos report, which Ashley referred to. Ashley, I don't know if you want to jump in on that one.
Yeah, it was just a case of time and availability of the independent party that carried out the survey for us. It was probably an error not to reflect on why we didn't, but it was the first research for us stepping into a space which was truly independent, using a third party to generate the data and support us in identifying the conclusions. It wasn't excluded, let's say, it was just what was available in terms of the customer base from the third party.
Okay. Vicky, you asked, is there a way to identify organizations? I think we're learning that, and the research that we're conducting now will show us more of that. I think the only thing I can say is the scope of the problem that is trying to be solved is what will determine that. If you're working with a service desk that is trying to improve the response time on incidents, probably not going to go beyond the 5 or 6. If you're dealing with someone who's trying to solve operational continuity in the business, you probably are going to go beyond the 5 or 6. Sorry, I'm keeping these answers very brief.
So David, can I just
absolutely.
jump in on that bit? So for
Yeah.
me, so we're seeing a shift, and we're advocating a shift when we're engaging with companies or talking to organizations that are embarking on some kind of improvement. The first step is, and we take reference to this in our guiding principles, is focus on the value, right? And once we've understood what the value the business is trying to achieve or what services it's creating to achieve that value, the next step would be to go through the assessment. And the assessment will help identify which primary and secondary practices need focus on and which parts of the services need improving, which parts of the services are fit for use already, or which need designing. And once you've got that output or that inference, you can go back to the business and then understand what the appetite is for them moving forward with the remedial work or the design or creation. So it's really about collaboration with the practitioners or the external consultants and the business to identify what value is going to be achieved and therefore what services and practices need to be worked on. And through that, you'll identify what the appetite is to go beyond and what sponsorship you can create.
Now, I'm conscious that we have a number of questions still unanswered. Some of those we will get back to you by email. But we're 2 minutes from the top of the hour, and I know Rosario has one more piece of really cool business that she would like to discuss. So I am going to go to that. Rosario, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
Now we will have a raffle of some ITIL e-learning vouchers. As you know, People Search has launched ITIL e-learning courses, which include the course plus the official material, plus the ebook, plus the exam voucher. So instead of a raffle, we are going to do a mini contest. Of course, please bear with us. It is a raffle. It has some component of luck on the speed of your connectivity, etc. But we will ask a very simple question, and the first 3 people who answer it well, correctly, will get the voucher, okay? Through the Q&A. Don't try to use the chat because it's not active. So through the Q&A, the first 3 people who answer it correctly will get the ITIL voucher. Then you can select which one is better for you. So the question is, if you can show it, David, what does the ITIL acronym stand for? So go to the Q&A and just answer. Okay. So good. So we have the first one. Sorry, here we are. Okay, the first one is Manuel Garcia Lacayo. who said Information Technology Infrastructure Library. The second one is Shirley Abranches, also Information Technology Infrastructure Library. And the third one is Ibrahim Shafei. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your surname. IT, also Information Technology Infrastructure Library. So the three of you, congratulations, Manuel, Shirley, and Ibrahim, for getting the vouchers. Then we will communicate and coordinate the delivery. Okay, thank you very much to all of you. I don't know, David and Ashley, if you want to say goodbye also.
Thank you all very much. I will get some of those answers sent back to you personally.
Okay, and hope you have enjoyed. Thanks for your attendance and hope it has been useful to you. Ashley, are you over there?
I am. Thank you very much.
Ah.
Have a good day.
Thanks and have a good day. And we will send you the presentation, the recording, and some useful links by email. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.